you for joining as usual. Is Sonal here?
Yeah, okay. I'm here.
Okay. How many is Intern around? Intern is ill. I don't know whether, but she told me she noted that she made you an admin, I guess.
Yes. Intan was here, and she made me the host, and I think she's not well. So
Yes.
logged off.
Yeah, she's not at all. Is Natalia around?
Natalia, I don't see. I see only 3 of us here.
All right. Okay. I'm sure they will all join later. I've invited some other people. Like I said, this is a wonderful topic for all of us to actually not want to miss.
Yes.
Because for one, I never imagined in my wildest dream for us in Africa, particularly Nigeria, because I had known there was a time I had made an attempt to see how possible it could be to mediate in criminal matters. And I was almost as if, where is this man coming from? Are you okay? But I was now taken aback and pleasantly surprised when I saw Pascal on Vikram's conference, boldly talking about mediation in criminal cases. So Pascal, I cede the floor to you. I thought I had gotten up there when it comes to mediation. No, I'm eager to learn. So I cede the floor to you, Pascal.
Yeah,
the floor is yours. Let's hear from you.
Thank you. I will just introduce myself just quickly, just to Sonal as well. So my name is Pascal Comvalius. I'm based in the Netherlands, and I've been practicing just mediation over this long time. I always sell peace in an adversarial world. That's what I'm basically doing, and my goals is just mainly mediation in family and in the criminal cases. Besides that, I'm also a certified crisis negotiator, so hostage or suicide prevention. So regarding to the more just topic mediating the criminal cases in the Netherlands, we have the opportunity to mediate such cases, and I'm residing on the court district of The Hague. And the process is as following. I have my own company, so we're not. I'm not affiliated, but there's a certain group who meets all the qualifications, who will then reside in my jurisdiction, which is The Hague. There are about just 12 jurisdictions, so you have Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and Utrecht. And what we do in that sense, a case comes in, the police, or there is being police report, could be anything, but they will look at it like, okay, maybe it's something for just mediation. Then it goes to the prosecutor. The prosecutor can then decide what's going to happen. Okay, yeah, this could be, they talk to the parties, it could be a case for mediation. Then we have at the court, we have an internal mediation center. They're not doing actual mediations, but they are involved. They have just the intake, and they look at which mediators could possibly, if there's a fit. Well, why do I say a fit? Because we have all different backgrounds. Some of them, as myself, I'm not a lawyer. I do not have a law degree. I have a degree in behavioral science. So that's entirely different, because we separate literally. As I always tell people, so what's the issue? Is the law the issue, or are the people having an issue? It's the people are having an issue. And then we look later at how to just play into just the law and local law and regulations. So after they've done the intake, it comes to us, the mediation, and we get all the information which is necessary. So we get the complaint, the charges, we get the file from the court. That is the statement at the police, either just victim and offender. And what is common, it's that it's mostly not done by one mediator, but two mediators. And there are several reasons for that. number one is safety. Mine sounds just strange. Most of them are in court that take place. So whenever we hit the button, law enforcement will come up and assist us. It never happened. In all these years, there's never been an accident. But secondly, why we have just 2 mediators is the 4I principles. Two see more than one. You build better rapport with one of another. So that's why we have 2 people just in place. There is so-called just a leading mediator, but it's not that somebody is apart. We're working together, but it's more just leading from a facilitative process. So we'll take off the administrative part. So we call up the people, just make sure that they are willing to participate. We already sent them the mediation agreement, so they have an idea. We sent them the rules and regulations because we are part of an organization. So they even have a complaint part. So if people have complaints about us, they can go to them. We also have the sort of the GDPR compliance because we handle just specific, just private, just information, which want to be public. So we have to meet certain standards when it comes to that. And then we have just the intake first. So from a process, we start first with either just the victim or the offender, and we talk to them individually for an hour, also to see if it's safe. And we want to hear their view, how they experience this, what happened according to them. And then we take it just to the next step. How do they foresee whether how it's going to be solved? What they think it's a good are good solutions. Then we go to the other just party and ask them just the same questions. And of course, this is in the case of two parties, because you can imagine there could be one victim and multiple offenders. We have the other ranges around, but we need to separate that at first. Then we also decide if it's going to be safe enough to have them in one room. And if not, or they don't want to see each other, you play sort of the carrying pitches. We go back and forth between the rooms. However, we like to avoid that at all costs, because it's always better to have two people the two parties in the room. And they talk directly to each other with our help. And when we have that just them together, we just talk about it. So what happens? Just from each side of the story. They listen. You also give that just instruction, and then we see any sort of solutions. And if there are coming just solutions, because it could be anything. It could be we're not going to greet each other. We leave each other alone. We're not going to badmouth or tell bad stories about whomever, or gossip, because that's a lot. So that's one part, and that's the immaterial. But there's also could be the part of material, which is just damages or injuries, or just claims for anything, which we discuss then as well, and that will be part of the contract. And we try to settle, especially with the financial part. We try to make sure that they already going to pay it as soon as possible. Why do I say that? Otherwise, it's still open. It's an agreement, but it's not been just solved completely. So you want to make sure that you have everything ready before you send it back to the court. We have to send it after the agreement within 5 business days back, and then the court will look at it. And it's not, I want to emphasize, it's not replacing the whole court system. it's existing next to it. And what does it mean? It means that it goes to the court, either the judge or the prosecutor will look at it, and he or she can say, oh, this is really nice, just agreement. We're going to drop the case. I don't foresee any just form of of punishment. And it could also be like, this is a great agreement. However, I feel that there still needs to be some form of punishment. And you could imagine with more severe cases that the public still asks for some sort of punishment. And that's when you also see the merge of restorative justice, as we know, which is just after, combined with just the mediation in criminal case. There is, and it's because people sometimes tend to say, oh, you're doing restorative justice. Yes, it's true, but it's restorative justice 2.0, as I would call it, because there's something just enhanced to that. And what kind of cases? It could be any kind of cases. It could be your ordinary neighborhood dispute about a tree or a fence. It could be about assault, battery, could be rape, burglary. It even could be a murder case. And that sounds strange because what's the mediate with the murder case? And these are just extreme cases. Don't need to forget that the family of the victim always have questions. And in a murder case, in such a severe case, there are 3 questions they always have. Why? Why did you do it? Did he or she suffer? And the 3rd one, what were his or her last words? These questions it's common to see what we see in such cases. They will at least have an answer to that particular question. And as I said, that maybe they have just a beautiful agreement, but still you cannot get away with murder. That would be sort of strange. However, you could argue that because they made a certain agreement, the sentence of that could be lower, or that they need some help from a therapist, from a psychologist or a psychiatrist for the murder, in order just to help them just reintegrate back into our society.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, like I expected it, you've already taken the words out of my mouth. Where I was waiting for you all this while was what happens in mediation in murder cases. But as you are now talking, I now have, you said you're not a lawyer, but those of us who are lawyers, I now have a look at it and say, okay, maybe you could actually mediate in manslaughter. That is a case that was not something that was not done intentionally. For instance, if you're driving along the road and somebody crosses the road and you hit the person and unfortunately the person dies, that matter can be mediated. Now, the question now I want to now ask, what about where the mens rea is there? All the ingredients for murder can be proved. There was nothing to say it was not intentional.
Yeah.
Can you mediate in such matters? Can that be possible?
Yes, you still can, because you're just restoring you're giving them the answers, you're giving the opportunity to the families of the victim to have a conversation with whomever it's just done. And it sounds crazy, but people are just there are also just a category who refuses. It's all about voluntary, and that element should never be forgotten. We should not say you go to mediation just first. But let me give you just an example.
Good.
Yep.
Yes.
And there's with 2 ways. and I have to just anonymize it. But imagine that there would be just a sailing instructor, and he's responsible for everybody on the ship. Now somebody gets into the water. There are all rules and regulations that he should go after this person, etc. He didn't do that because he thought, I need to be with the ship. So you could argue, and she dies unfortunately. So you could argue, okay, is he now liable just for that or not? And it's really hard just to talk about knowing that you've let a person just drown in the water in this case. Yet this person, which is not just in that sense just a murderer, but was facing 5 members of the family of the victim. 5. So imagine you have one, just the offender. I don't like this word, but one who could be blamed for that incident, and is sitting and facing 5 members with all different needs, with all their and the dynamics. So it's 5 against 1. So you have to be really just about the dynamics. I can tell you, in this case, the family said, I don't want you to have press charges with you. We only want to understand where you did, what you learn, and because you're a sailing instructor, what are your key takeaways in order to prevent that it will never ever happen again. And
okay, I want to ask you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Have you ever been involved in some of these things can meet us very well if we have practical examples. Have you been involved? Have you witnessed one? Have you mediated in a mediation in a murder case, for instance? That has to do, mediating in a murder case. Have you done that practically? Has anyone come before you with such, somebody's already dead, can't come back again? Have you had that kind of live case so you can discuss with us?
Well, I can give you just the example with it's a family murder case. So what happened is husband and wife get into an argument. She is in another relationship. He is very depressed, doesn't go well with work. He wants to go to a psychologist. She tells him, no, you better smoke weed and everything because that's better, because you don't do that. So he's smoking weed, gets very depressed about the whole thing. What happens? They get into an argument. She wants to attack him and almost just strangle. He responds back and strangles her. She's dead. But it doesn't end there. He gets, if it's been found out from reports, he gets in a different state of mind. He goes to a shop, buys a chainsaw, and cut her up in 13 pieces. Put all the body parts in each individual in a garbage bag, and a separate bag for her intestines, God knows why. And he installs it on his roof. Days goes by, he goes to the police and reports that his wife is missing. Okay, well, they think, okay, well, that's strange. One of the police officers thinks, well, let us just visit him. He opens the door and he's standing there in his robe. Well, can I open? And he's like, yo, yeah, I'm just confused. They see him, that can we continue, and see him covered in blood. He tried to kill himself. And he said, I made a mistake. And because they go earlier before that, they go investigated the house. They notice the bathroom is completely clean, but the rest of the house is a mess. So the police sees that doesn't match. So they go back to the police office. They think this is not good. They go back. If you find the guy covered just in blood because he tried to commit suicide. Police goes upstairs, find all the body parts. Now this case goes to, because the family of the victim of the family wants to talk to the murderer, and the murderer wants to do the same thing. So these are just extreme circumstances. So we do not have it at the court. We have it at the prison. Even in this case, there was even an interpreter, because it was from another country. So we have the individual intakes. What we see with the murderer, he was completely under medication because he was suicidal, but we still could just have a conversation. The moment we go, we take the other, just the family member, we bring him in, we get the instruction from the director of the prison. Whenever something's happening, you jump back and we jump in because we need to separate them. So we sit down in a separate room. Then the murderer comes in and they know each other with two just guards. I see the family member is fuming. He's all pumped up. They start to conversate just in their own language, and the interpreter just translates everything. Then he says, the family member, they start to just talk why, and he admits that his sister could be sometimes a pain in the ass. That could be very difficult and to just trap the hopeless. He says, I don't want you to die in prison. I don't want you to commit just suicide. I don't want you to keep up your hopes and be free. Be a free man at one day. I wish I could just bring you right now just back to our home country so you can just like your sins. The murderer said, I will do everything what I can to support you because you just deserve that. They make financial arrangements. He just forgives. He says, why do I want to have you just that you die? Why do I want to do that? There's already just bad things happening in the world, and I'm not God. So why should I act as God? So we have this whole agreement, and it's pre-trial. It's not during trial, it's pre-trial. So we made the agreement. It goes to the court, and normally it's instead of 10 years in prison, let's say 10 years in prison, and it's going to psychological help. He gets 3 years to start as soon as possible with his psychiatric program. So do we bring anything back? No, we don't. That is just alive. But we at least restore it, and there is some form of peace. Peace not only with just the victim or the family of the victim, and with the murderer or the suspect as well. So that's why I would argue that having just a conversation, or just having that level, just better understanding beyond just the motives, already eases just the pain from in this particular case. Yes, Does it happen every day? No, it doesn't every day. The other thing is the approach as a mediator is just different. You have to just take it baby steps. Normally, you can just run just through. You take by baby steps, you're really aware. One of the wards of the prison told me, like, I've seen many just bad people just in my case, but this is something just almost just very just unique, and that it's possible. I'm thankful for that there is such a thing as mediation, or that there is someone who is helping the parties at least having a conversation.
Okay. If I leave the floor, could you, I know you told me you're going to send me the hard copy of the books. Could you discuss briefly 1 or 2 chapters of your books with us, just briefly, before I cede the floor to the ladies to ask their own questions?
So the murder case is in the book.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
Another case is a case where mediation did not work. Mediation doesn't work. If somebody says, I only want to collect my money, I want to have $1,500, and comes in, there's no room. Like, I'm only here to collect my money. I don't want to listen to a story. I only want to collect my money because I'm entitled to. And then yelling at my colleague, I said, okay, that's it. Stop, go away. Because these people are not willing to listen to the other part. And that's one of the most important
mediation.
things. Yeah, in mediation. There's also the third one, because you asked, is a case between a couple who's got a very hostile, while a child is watching everything. And they are up to divorce. They sit on the kitchen table. At one point, the husband grabs a bucket of water and throws it, just empties it over the head of his wife in front of the kid, and says, your mommy needs to cool down because she doesn't like daddy anymore. After that, they get into a fight, into the car, smashing windows. She gets glass in her eye, or in her ear, goes to court. But the other thing is, there's another element. At that time, as she pressed charges, even they don't want to mediate, apparently, or there is some expectation that she has been sexually abused during the marriage. Now, are we truth finders? No, we're not, because it's always hard just to that. It's not if it's all about the facts and evidence. That's an investigation. When it comes to that, it's all about police, law enforcement. It's not our job. That I luckily know just a little bit more of whether or not, because of my study, whether or not somebody is truthful or not. Speaking the truth gave me just there were certain clues that she was actually being sexually abused. And this is also another case which I describe in my book. I have 15 stories. 15 stories, and it's going from really easy at neighbor disputes where you think, why are they just even arguing? Because what I also just want to show is that some cases are should not even go to a court, because people only sometimes go to the police. Why? Because they want to be heard. They want to share their story. And we as mediators, if you look at the process, ideally, you already want to be in front. You want to be right there. So it doesn't go to court. They don't go through all that hassle. And the other thing is, they gives them just the least amount of chance to have just a criminal record. Because as soon as you press charges, they say, well, I want to drop them. No, you cannot drop the case, because as a person, you cannot withdraw your complaint. It's already part of the system, at least just in our jurisdiction in the Netherlands. You cannot withdraw it. It's now in the hands of the of the police and the court. But if we just catch that as just earlier, at an earlier stage, we are really able just to help, and that is not laying just on a pile, as I've seen in, with all respect, in Pune, when I was in Pune in India, and I was visiting the court and I saw the piles. I'm like, oh my God. So we can actually help just people as well, just have it just as short as possible. And it's not only just about the cases. The cases are just interesting because people ask me, so tell me what kind of cases, because there are a lot of crazy stories to tell. But it's not about just the crazy stories. It's about what's in it. It's talking about empathy. It's talking just about communication. It's talking about trauma. And even just mediated with children, with childhood traumas. It's talking about attentiveness. So all kinds of aspects. So it's still, people can still recognize it. So even though if you're not a mediator, you can still just being a thing. And as a mediator, you were like, oh, okay. So now I see it, how it can be applied also within for other cases. So there are learning elements from that perspective, just
All right.
as well.
Okay. All right. Very interesting session. I'll allow the ladies come in. Like I said, I think I expected more people. A lot of people showed excitement, but I'll round up with what I feel, my thoughts about the session later. But let me allow the that's what I feel, my own humble opinion, and I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong. Okay, Sonal, over to you for you to make your own contribution.
First of all, Pascal, thank you so much for such great information. And criminal cases being mediated is something very new, especially for India, because penal offenses are definitely not within the ambit of mediation. So it is really very interesting to learn from you that how people are more trying towards restorative justice, especially in Netherlands. So
Yeah, I also talked about it because I've done several just sessions in at universities in India, also just online, and I'm teaching at the Maharashtra Law University in Mumbai.
okay,
I'm teaching just for the first master's program of of mediation or alternative dispute resolution, and it's specific about the criminal cases, or restorative justice as the module is called. So in that sense, I was very familiar because I asked them as well, given the new mediation bill, what are the pros and cons, or where see the opportunities for having mediation in criminal cases? So I have a lot of information from all my just students, about 30, and where there should be openings and where there just where we need to change certain just things. So it was very interesting.
Okay, and if I may so ask, like, did you find a very positive response from the university students about mediation in criminal?
Yes, they loved it. They love it because, and it's the same as Chiogo says, because wow, that is something new. It's just a new just learning experience, and I love to just to talk about it and spread the word about it. The other thing is that we, in our jurisdiction, we solve, or we have an agreement in 90%, 90% of the cases.
That's really interesting, because in India, like, I am surprised that university students, because in India, let's see the cultural differences also while you were talking. But in India, it's mostly like litigation dominates, especially the idea
Nigeria,
of, yes, yeah, because the idea of right and wrong is very dominant in the culture. So when you talked about your cases where the family of the victim are willing to understand. I mean, it's such a emotional atmosphere that they are facing the person who has murdered their family member, and they are willing to understand what went behind, why that person did it. So that is really really something very new, if I would say, for our culture.
But here this will also happen. So no, this will help you.
Yes.
Whatever, regardless of the case, I tell them. Of course, your lawyer will tell you that you will win the case because you have such a strong case. Yeah. But there's also percentage that you could lose, right? So they tell you the black and white, win or lose. I tell them there's another one. And that the judge will rule something, or the court will rule something, which you're not just even, both you're not satisfied. So in order to get it your way, you better flip a coin than going to the court system, because it lowers your chance from 50 to 33%, and flipping a coin, I still have my chance of getting it my way. Now I said with the mediation, you have the opportunity to be behind the steering wheel and to get just the thing your way. It's about self-determination. Who's the law? Of course, there are just law and just regulations, but isn't it just, can it not be argued that you don't know yourself what you understand is regarding justice? And it's not, most of the time, it's not just the punishment. It's not just, or just the financial. I tell people, because, oh, I want to have 15 or 2,000, and how do you come with that number? Yeah, they told me I could get this, but it's only a temporarily satisfactory. If I give you just 2,000 euro or whatever, just right now, would it satisfy now the case is solved? No, there's something missing. And that's what I emphasize as well. You have to look at the bigger picture in that sense.
I recently attended a webinar. Dr. Serena Williams, she has done a lot of work in restorative justice. She gave us a figure of 96 to 4%, where 96% of the people are really remorseful of whatever they have done. But there will be 4% of them who would fake remorse. And how, in mediation, are you able to analyze or see that if this is really a person, a person who is remorseful of their actions, and who will it will do justice for not for evading penal offenses, like evading some punishment or some restorative some action.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And because sometimes if I make an apology, I'm sorry, and it's not sorry, it could even just be could cause more harm to the victim. It calls secondary victimization. It happens just a second time. You want to just avoid that. That's why we all first have the intake. And what I'm talking about in my book when it comes to apology, there are a couple of elements where you can just look for, and then starts the forgiveness. It's a whole thing. Am I just to tell? Yes, you are. I would, or most of us are have that sixth sense. Okay, well, this is genuine. Okay. And again, given my background, it helps tremendously, because I can just think, okay, that's what we have. But you should not forget, as a mediator, you also just tend to be neutral. If somebody says like, oh, I apologize and everything, and it's good enough for the victim, and we see like, well, why were you just saying this? But if it's just good enough, who am I again to say like, no, it's not good enough, it's not just right? That's sometimes just a difficult balance. But yes, we are just able just to understand. We see some bad intent, and we can also say at that point, well, okay, stop. because it's not, we don't feel it, we don't see it or hear it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
All right. Okay. Natalia, do you have any questions so we can sum up? Pascal, apparently what happens is that we're going to have this session again. Natalia, do you have any question?
Oh, hi, Sujoki. Hi, Pascal. Thank you so much. And Pascal, I'm in São Paulo, Brazil. And here we have a criminal mediation. But I observed that they use transformative mediation. But I realize that some users, they don't want to transform the relation sometimes. And I remember this group, they only worked with transformative mediation, and I think it was not very good for some users. What do you think?
Okay, I can tell you, Natalia, I don't have any form, what I call it client-centered. Whatever the client just needs, and whether it's just facilitative or just evaluative, whatsoever these streams, we're not going to, if you're going to stick in one area, you get stuck. And yes, there are just the elements, and I also just described that there you help them, the clients, so you just facilitate or just help them whatever they need. And sometimes it's evaluative. It's not necessarily, no, most likely that's evaluative, that's bad. I couldn't imagine that there are circumstances that people might ask, so what will happen in court? Well, first of all, I say, I'm not a fortune teller. I cannot predict what is court, and you can go out there and find all these cases. But what I do know is that here at this table, you have the opportunity. So what I give them, the power actually, and help them to get through that process, rather than just on being stuck in transformative. Because the other thing is, Natalia, is there are also narrative elements to it, because you want to have a happy, just long live together, just with a happy end in that sense. It was to be just a nice end and not some weird end. So you changing in that sense just the narrative. So it's not only just the transformative. If you just stuck with that, yes, they're very just good. There could be mediations where transformation is absolutely great. However, I would argue it's only just a form, and you use whatever is helpful for the clients. That's how I see it.
Okay. Are you true, Natalia? Or do you have another question? Do you have another question?
Other question? No, you can.
Okay. All right. So basically for me, Pascal, it's indeed an interesting session we've had with you. For just like Sonal said, for us in Nigeria and India, when these cases happen, it's just the courts, it's litigation streets. And that's why I was so excited to have you come on this platform to discuss with us about mediation in criminal cases. For me, I feel and I believe strongly that, as you said in the course of our discourse this evening, for me, even on my own part, is that, yes, you can actually do mediation in criminal cases. For instance, in manslaughter, I give an example of a man driving along the road and mistakenly, unfortunately, knocks down somebody and the person dies. Of course, mediation in that criminal case can take place. You now came up with another example, which has also now put me on the same spot of excitement as I was when you said you were coming on board to talk with us. Now, you gave us an instance where somebody actually murdered his wife, cut her into pieces, and when it was now time, and there was room for mediation in criminal cases. There was room for mediation in that criminal case. The brother to the late woman, actually agreed with his brother-in-law to let it go, because his excuse was that the woman was a pain in the ass. Pardon me for using that word, but that's the word, was like someone that was just a very, very, when she was alive, she was almost like a pain. So in other words, it means basically that mediation in that kind of criminal case can actually take place. But that is very sad, because the person that is dead is already gone. is now dependent on the brother now to decide her fate. So in other words, and for us as mediators, what really matters for us as mediators is once the parties agree to mediate, mediation takes place. It's a voluntary process. Nobody forces you, it's not a duress thing. And once you agree to mediate, whatever circumstances behind it, nobody wants to know. All it is that have you agreed to mediate? And once you have agreed to mediate, you're now in the mediation session.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, it also now comes in to say, yes, this example you gave us was a very gory case, but it actually brought into perspective, brought to the fore, actually what we've been talking about this night, mediation in criminal cases. This is a particular case, murder, for instance. Somebody died, it was not intentional. I had thought initially that it was intentional because, you said the woman held him on the neck. He was trying to, the woman held him and she held the woman. And you could say self-defense for us, those of us who are lawyers. Even it will now matter to which extent because of the strength of the man. But you could argue self-defense to some to a certain extent.
Exactly.
But now when they now cut, but now it now goes further to say when they now cut the woman into pieces, it now goes beyond self-defense. It now goes beyond having an intention prior to what must have happened, because that was extreme. Now that has now happened, and that is very extreme. And now the brother to the woman now comes in and says, I don't want to see you go in for this. This woman was a pain. We can actually settle this. And as mediators that we all are, once there's an agreement to mediate, the session takes place. So I think for me, this last example you gave, is actually a successful case of mediation in criminal cases. However sad it is, for me particularly, that was a very gory matter.
It's very sad that okay, but that's the part which is of forgiveness, which I just explained in book, and that people are capable of just that too. Yes, of course, sometimes they hold grudges and they contradict each other, but just the bottom line, we don't have to forget that people, if they are just participating in such a mediation case, they have a certain stress response state. Their stress is up to here because for some of them it's the first time after the incident that they meet, and it brings back the memory, maybe the smell or the taste, could be any or some little thing, and we should be just aware of that. And coming to the point, like, okay, but there are lawyers and that's already just in their hands. What we need to educate the public, and we need to help the lawyers that we're not taking away their money. We're not. No, we're helping them actually to raise the customer satisfaction, because you solved it differently. You've been just decided just by a lawyer, and they were like, that was great because he helped me through the entire process in a shorter time. So I would argue that if you have a higher customer satisfaction rate as a lawyer, you get more cases rather than just to charge the big bucks, and they might not end up getting nothing.
All right, Pascal. Thank you very much for coming on our platform. Like I said, you owe us another session, and another session, because it's this field. I dare say you're a pioneer in this field, because like Sonan and I we admitted to you that is for us in our clients, it's straight to the court. No room for this. No room for mediation. Like I told you, that's why I was excited having you. So I think you're going to do another session with us. I'll talk to you and we'll see how we can get that done, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much for coming on our platform today.
I would thank you. Sona and Natalia, happy just to connect just on LinkedIn. You can stop the recording now.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Yeah.